So we're back again and talk about entrepreneurship. You might be the definition of it here. You just told us about 7 businesses, and you sold some, you let some of them go. There's one business I got to ask you about. I did see this when I was checking out your name online, Johnny Slicks.
Oh,
Tell me about
man,
Johnny Slicks.
just a beautiful story, man.
Is it?
Just a beautiful story. You know what it is? Johnny Slicks is the American dream.
Sweet.
It's the American dream. Let me tell you about Johnny Slicks. So my business partner got out of the Marine Corps. So we're both Marines. Got out of the Marine Corps and through this long thing. He was in his early 20s, and he was old school, like 50s look, if you will.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And he was using a lot of product to style his hair like that. And his hair was thinning. Then it started to fall out in his early 20s. And he was like, what the heck? And he started looking at these products. And these products had, I've seen them, like they had like paragraphs of ingredients that you can't even read. You
don't know what they are.
You have no clue what they are. And so he started looking them up and figured out what they were chemicals. And one was like a formaldehyde, and one, like all kinds of crazy shit, man.
Wow.
So he's like, okay, well, this obviously isn't good for you. It's probably causing a lot of problems. And then he started Googling things and started realizing there was class action lawsuits around certain cosmetic companies and this and that. And so he's like, well, I'm going to go organic. And he said, well, if it's organic, you can find it in the woods and that kind of thing. And then you can just cook it and make it yourself, right? Well, he spent a year making it, and he burning shit in his kitchen. I think he made a product. And like I said, I was running to businesses. I became kind of popular on social media at the time. And so he reached out to me 70,000 times through social media, and I ignored him. And this is almost 7 years ago now. And he wanted me just to try the product. He had 3 products. He wanted me to try the product, and marketing was bad. He had no website. He had no brand. He had a name, and that was it. It was Johnny Slicks. That was one thing. He did a lot of good things, but the one thing he did do was he locked down Johnny Slicks. He got the URL through some like third party weird thing. It took us a while to get the URL actually like over to where it's used. But anyways, I was live on Instagram, and my wife, Allie, said, hey, this Johnny Slicks wants to drop something by. And I was like, all right, just drop something by. And he got all crazy and he had this big, beautiful package, put a bunch of product in there, went to like Kinko's and printed out the logo and a sheet and explained everything.
Wow.
So I show up and it's there, and I messaged him. I was like, hey man, I just got to the office. I got your package. Are you still close by? And he's like, oh yeah, actually I am. And he flipped a Yui, and we have this whole story of him telling the story. And he comes down, and I ask him business questions and like, what's his infrastructure like? How does he cook stuff? How does he sell? And he had answers for nothing. And now we make a joke. He was a no infrastructure.
That's a new word.
Yeah. And we're talking, this was, 2018, 17, 18. And he had like a silver briefcase, and he was basically going door to door trying to sell his cosmetic products, aids and beard oil and things like that.
Wow.
And, anyways, so I tried it for a couple of weeks, and I told my wife, and keep in mind, this isn't the time where I'm like buying and selling businesses. I'm on the entrepreneur thing. I'm like, I'm building businesses, selling them, buying them, selling them, building them up, flipping things. And, I got a decent team we're moving and shaking. And, so I tell Allie, I'm like, this is $1 million product. Now keep in mind, like we're doing okay, but we're not doing millions. Okay. We're in the 6-figure range for some of the businesses, but we're not doing millions, but we're doing okay. It's like for the first time in my life, I'm like, okay, things are good. Things are all right.
Not going to be eating cat food tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. And, there for a while, I'll tell you this, for a couple of years, Steve, it was looking like we might have to eat some dog food out of a can.
I remember those days.
Yeah. And, but not at this current time. Things are on the up. They're on the up. And, but I tell her, I'm like, babe, this is $1 million business waiting to happen. Like this product alone is $1 million product. And, I said, I think I got to partner with this kid. And, keep in mind, Steve, we don't even know each other. We've met one time. So I'm in Texas for a work trip, and I call him and I say, hey, listen, when I get back, when I want to talk to you about this product. All right. And he goes, well, let's just talk about it now. I was like, no. I want to sit down and have this conversation with you. I don't want to. He's like, listen, Nick, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. He's like, if you don't talk about it now, I'm not going to sleep between now and when you get back to North Carolina.
You know what? I might have felt the same way.
I said, okay, fair enough. I said, listen, here's the deal, and you don't have to give me an answer, but you've got something really, really great here. You've got a really great product here. And at the time, it was only three products. I said, you got something really good. I think it's $1 million product that needs to go to market. I think you can help a lot of people, and I think and it was all American. And I'll get into our morals and stuff here soon. But he said, this is $1 million product, and you have to give me an answer. But when I get back, I want to sit down with you. I want to talk specifics, and I'm interested in partnering with you and building this business. So we get back and we meet in Chipotle. We meet him and his wife Rebecca, who now is our COO, and we sit down and say, basically, we want to partner with you. And we ask some questions like, hey, you guys are, young, and they got, nothing wrong with tattoos. I got tattoos too, but tattooed and got, and shit's piercings all over the place and funny looking hair. And at the time, they're both grown up a lot now.
I'm looking at a picture of him.
Yeah. And now it's funny when we should do a side by side of when we started Johnny Slicks and him now. He looks a lot older. I don't know if that's just age or stress from building a bigger business, but we laugh about it all the time. Anyways, like, well, you guys are addicted to drugs. What's the deal? Like, what are we getting into bed with? And they're like, nope. And it was pretty funny. They're pretty straight edge. And so with knowing each other for 3 weeks, we partnered, and there's a lot more to it, but we partnered and we rebranded. My wife built a website from scratch. His best selling month ever, which wasn't even profitable, was I think $348 in a month.
Whoa.
Not profitable.
That's not good.
We worked fast. We built a website. I said, how much can you cook? We started the business. I had an office, so I cleared out one of the rooms in my office, and said, okay, this is going to be the Johnny Slicks room. So he got a bench. We bought a fridge to cool the product that was cooked. He had one pot. I think I bought 2 more pots and a shelf. And he brought some ingredients in, and I said, all right, here's $400. Cook as much as you can cook. We got the new labels. She rebranded the whole thing. And then we went from there. And I said, okay, cook as much as you can cook. He's like, how much you can cook? He was like, I don't know, about 20. And I'm like, double it. He's like, oh shit.
Is this at 20 bottles or
24-ounce jars of pomade?
Okay.
20, Steve.
All right.
And I'm like, well, that ain't enough. You got to double it. Anyways, we launched the website. I publish it. I put it up on YouTube in an episode. I tell everybody on social media about it. And in the first hour, we made more in the first hour than he ever made in a month.
Wow.
And he was like, holy shit. And I was like, yeah, brother, we got a business.
Wow. And how long ago was that? How many years ago was it?
We're at 6.5. So this March will be 7 years. March 7th is our anniversary date. And then, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Damn, let me think. What have I got I could bring to your attention here?
So, first year, no ads, completely organic. We did 6 figures. We broke 6 figures our first year. Once I saw the success on the organic side, I said, okay, now it's time to turn on some advertising. We went from that to 600,000, and then 1.9, and then 2.4, and then this year we're an 8-figure company.
Whoa! Congratulations to both of you. Holy cow!
Obviously a lot more products. We've got 25 employees. We're building a 11,000 square foot warehouse. So there's a lot going on now. Here's the beauty. Like, we do shampoos, conditioners, body washes, hair stuff, beard stuff, shave soap. I mean, we are an organic grooming company for men. But that's not what it's about, Steve. Let me tell you what it's really about.
All right.
Johnny Slicks is about America. It's about American manufacturing. It's about utilizing American companies for ingredients to bring those ingredients into Johnny Slick's manufacturing warehouse, which is right across the street here, and make clean products for American families. And not only that, but it's also about giving American people jobs.
Excellent.
When you buy Johnny Slicks, your dollars stay in America. Your dollars go to our employees. Your dollars go to our vendors, which are American only, and their families. I mean, at this point, I don't even know how many families Johnny Slick supports, with all the other people that are involved between our vendors and our employees and then our customers. And that's what it's about. It's about bringing back American-made products that are made by Americans for Americans.
I love it. And I'm looking at the website now. I'm going to guess there's an American flag on there somewhere, but it must be on the back.
There definitely is. They're all over there.
Yeah. I mean, talk about a success story. Holy cow. That's one that you could write a book about.
And we probably should. But that's really where our passion comes into play, because we've been told to outsource manufacturing to all over the place, overseas. We've been told to outsource our customer service to the Philippines, and then basically outsource everything. And then us just be the owners and our wives just be a marketing company, and we just rake in a bunch of dough. And it'd be way more profitable, but the product wouldn't be organic. It would have chemicals in it. And all the money that we'd be paying to people to outsource would be supporting people overseas. I wouldn't have, and we've got husband and wives that work for us. We got a husband and wife and a son that works for us. I mean, we're a family business.
Outstanding.
Not just in our family, but our employees' families work here. Yeah. And we would not have that opportunity if we did not do things the way that we did.
Are a lot of them former military?
We got a lot of former military guys. Yeah. So we manufacture in-house, fulfill in-house, our media team's in-house, our customer service is in-house. Like, we are vertically integrated. When you're buying Johnny Slicks, you know exactly who's on the team. It's on the website. You know who you're buying from, who you're supporting from. It truly is the American dream.
Wow, talk about a motivational success story. I didn't know Johnny Slicks was that big. I just thought, what is this the name's Johnny Slicks? What is this about? I mean, I knew it was grooming products for men, but I hadn't even looked at the website.
Yep.
Wow. All right. So tell us about some of the other things you're doing. So you've got a podcast.
Yep. Nick Koumalatsos show.
Now, I saw one that's called Always Forward. Is that part of that?
Yeah. So we've, like anything, we started out as the Harbor Site. The original podcast name was the Harbor Site, and it was kind of a panel podcast. And then everybody got so busy, and that didn't work out. Nobody really knew what the Harbor Site was. Do you remember what the Harbor Site is? So when you're on an operation, you get done with the operation, or before you go to the operation, you circle up and you basically call it Harbor Site. And that's where you can eat, clean your weapon, reset your gear, whatever. Talk about things if you need to, but it's a safe, you're in a safe spot. You find a safe spot to harbor up. You set some security, and then that's where you can rest, refit, sleep if you need to get a couple hours of sleep, etc. And that's what we called it, but nobody really understood what that was.
We call those 7-Elevens.
Yeah. And then it was the Always Forward podcast, because I had a coaching and mentorship program that was called Always Forward Coaching and Always Forward, mentorship program. And then that kind of turned into the Gogi, and then, nonetheless, but basically I just said, okay, now we're going to call it the Nick Koumalatsos show. So that went away. And so it's evolved over the years, but I think we started the podcast in 2016.
Wow.
Yeah. So
good for you, man.
Yeah, we've been at this a long time, but now it gives me the opportunity to not just do podcasts, but also do videos, solo videos, where I'm, providing lessons and things that I teach inside my coaching group and my community, to the public, and what people expect from me. And plus, as I've gotten older, the things that I want to talk about have changed, as you can imagine, right? The things that I find important, the things that I see in the world as a father, as a husband, as an entrepreneur, as a leader. There's things that I want to talk about. So this gives me the ability to talk about it a little bit different. Anyways,
there was one thing, and I want to come back to the entrepreneurship, because we've still got a little while to go on that. It's amazing what you're doing. But, and I just looked back at my notes here. One thing I didn't ask you is, when you came out of the Marine Corps, you told us what your mindset was. How did you deal with that? How did you transition from basically they taught you how to kill? in an effort to protect our country, and it's for the right reasons. And I've seen that book.
Yeah, I sucked. That's why this book got written, because
Excommunicated Warrior.
Excommunicated Warrior, the 7 Stages of Transition. I sucked, and my transition sucked, and that's how that book got written, was because that book, after I went through my own transition and I started working with people and helping people, I noticed that it wasn't a veteran issue, it wasn't a Nick issue, it was a human being issue as we go through things.
Mm-hmm.
And every single time that a chapter in our life ends, we sometimes get stuck in that, thinking that was the greatest thing that we ever did.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is the next chapter might be the best chapter of our life.
Mm-hmm.
But so many people are afraid to start that chapter.
Yeah.
That they kind of peak and they stay right there. And there's a lot of bad things that happen when you do that, whether it's vices, and then you start, filling the void with drugs and alcohol and pornography and gambling and just bad habits. And it never, and there's a reason why that you can never get enough alcohol to satiate yourself. You can never get enough drugs to satiate yourself, because it's a black hole. But when you let all that go and you start working on yourself and you start focusing on just progress, and that's the little simple things that really, really change your faith, and will really, your purpose over pleasure is what will happen. It's doing the hard things. It's doing the purpose work that actually makes you happy. Mm-hmm. Seeking pleasure will never satiate yourself. So my transition was one of shit. And there's a lot that I had to work through and a lot that I had to overcome.
Did you do it alone, or did you get some assistance?
So I definitely got some assistance. What I'll tell you is I didn't get assistance initially. I started to walk the path myself. Mm-hmm. When you can't sit on your couch and expect somebody to come help you. They're not going to find you. You find help by moving forward. When you walk the path, and I like the analogy of the Yellow Brick Road. When Dorothy walks the Yellow Brick Road, who does she come over? She comes across the line, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and she builds her team. Well, that's what I did. I had to move forward. I had to take that step moving forward, even alone initially. But over that, I found coaches and mentors and friends and people that were going to help me along the way. But I found them by moving forward. Mm-hmm. I didn't wait for them to come to me. No one's going to find you. No one's coming to help you. No one's coming to save you. You have to move forward. And when you move forward, the right people are going to be put in your path.
Yep. I agree. It's even as simple as like the DEA Training Academy brings my old partner and I up there 2 or 3 times a year now. We talk to the trainees. We call them BATs, basic agent trainees.
Yeah.
And there's always Q&A at the end. And then the whoever's in charge will ask us if we have any advice. And my advice to a situation like that is nobody likes going through training, basic training, DEA Academy training, FBI, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You don't really enjoy that, but you're learning. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter what you're going through. It's as good or as bad as you make it.
Right.
It's not indefinite. You have a finite time period, which I think now the Academy is 17 or 18 weeks. But at the end of that 18 weeks, you got your badge, you got your credentials. You can look at the instructors that screwed with you and say, here's to you. I'm just like you.
Yeah.
And that I even got selected to talk to, when you go through the Academy, your first week, they'll have a senior classman come from the Academy that's before you to come in for like 2 hours, and they turn all the cameras off, all the microphones are off. And the new class can ask the older guy any questions they want. My advice even back then, this was in 1987, was, you know what you got to do? If they tell you to shit in the corner, just ask them how high the pile is.
Yeah.
Just do what they tell you here. And then the day you get your credentials, after you walk across that stage, you can tell them to kiss your butt.
We call it cooperate to graduate.
There you go. I like that. I may steal that term from you.
Do you know,
it's all up here. It's a mind thing.
We make a joke in combatant dive school. Do you know what the difference is between the guy who graduates last and the guy who graduates first at combatant dive school?
What's that?
Combat diver. They're
Really?
both combat divers.
Yeah.
There's no difference.
There you go.
Whether you graduate first or last, you're both combat divers.
Cool. So how did you go about finding help, and where did you go to? And is there any advice you can give to
walk
people
the path, man? You got to get up off your ass. You got to get up off your ass, and you have to go to the gym, go get counseling,
Go get healthy. If you're fat, lose weight. If you're drinking, stop drinking. If you're eating shit, stop eating shit and eat real food. You got to do the work. You got to do the work. When you start doing that, things in your brain are going to start changing. And then you're going to start seeing things. Surround yourself by positive people. If there are negative people, stop talking to them.
If they've been negative, what is it you think you're going to gain from them? Do you like it because they're miserable?
It's a self-licking ice cream cone, Steve. Like you're never gonna get out of that circle. You have to get rid of that. You have to get rid of those people out of your life. And the reality is most people are their own worst enemy.
Yeah. I was mine.
So was I.
Until I got to the point where I felt like I didn't have to prove myself to anybody again. Honestly, that's when the job got to be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
In law enforcement, when you, especially like a Fed, if you transfer to offices, you're like the new guy all over again. Yeah. And you got to earn everybody's respect, and which is not hard to do if you're just doing your job. Be honest with them, and not trying to screw anybody over.
Yeah.
But it's not automatic like you would think it might be. Even after the Escobar case and living in Colombia, most people in DEA didn't know who I was or what I'd been involved with. If they asked me, I'd tell them. But it's not like, you go to a new office and say, hey, I killed Pablo Escobar yesterday. What'd you do?
Yeah, right.
If you're having to toot your own horn, it's not worth tooting.
Right.
So, and here we go pontificating again. Poor Nick's had to listen to me pontificate between little breaks here. So
I love it.
I appreciate you listening to me. The other thing is, so how long do you think it took you personally to finally come to the realization about what you're saying today? Is that something happened in a day, a week, a month, a year?
Oh, Steve, it was years. Yeah, I mean, and once I made the decision, you're talking about really kind of coming to grips with things probably 2 years after I got out. And then even then, that's when I kind of came to grips with it. But that's when the journey started after 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And
then once the journey started, you're talking about another 3 years just to get level. And then in 2019, I stopped drinking completely.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that in 2018 is when things really started to kind of uptake. But that's when I started taking ownership of everything around me. Started taking personal responsibility for everything. And even though I was doing okay in 17, 16 was disastrous. 17 was doing good. 18 was getting a lot better. And then and then from 18 on, it's just been a damn run.
Sweet.
Now I'm not saying that I haven't hit bumps across the road, business and different things. Always shit's going to happen. But I had to take ownership of everything in my life. Anything goes wrong, it's my fault.
Mm-hmm.
I had the freedom of choice, not the free. I could go left. I chose to go left. I chose to go right. Doesn't matter. I take ownership of it. Because it just frees me. It frees me from blaming people. If I make a relationship with somebody and it goes sour, well, I made the relationship. I met them. I chose to have a relationship with them. If I go into a business deal and something goes sour, well, I chose to make the good business deal. Even if it's their fault, I'm still there.
Mm-hmm.
And when I changed my mindset of that, and then I started getting, and once that started happening, and I started investing in coaching and personal development, that's when time started to collapse. I mean, I've spent over $300,000 on personal development myself.
Like gym memberships,
no,
healthier eating.
No. Coaching. Paying people smarter than me, that have more experience than me, to coach me. Tell me just not only business, but how personally I'm showing up, help me with my unique abilities, making decisions. Do I go left or do I go right? How do I collapse time? How do I take 3 years and turn it into 1 year?
Is that like an executive coaching type deal?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so over the years, I've spent over $300,000 developing myself. But that $300,000 has turned into multiple 7 figures and multiple 8 figures.
Mm-hmm.
But people hear that and they're like, "Oh, I can't do that." Okay, and that's another limiting belief.
Yeah.
If you say you can't, then you can't.
Yeah, and why can't you? Yeah, there's so many things that you're saying that I can relate to my own life. I'm a small town country boy from Tennessee and West Virginia. I'm a cross between a redneck and a hillbilly. There's absolutely nothing special about me. I got to work a really big drug case that got blown out of proportion by a show called Narcos on Netflix, and look what it's taken us. It's amazing. I mean, just And it's like you're talking. I stopped drinking, and last time I took a drink was December of 2000. I was in Clarksville, Tennessee, at a Fraternal Order Police Lodge for a Christmas party, and I was a supervisor. One of my agents had to drive me back to the hotel in Nashville, and we were living in Atlanta. We had a mobile enforcement team back then, and it took 3 days to get over a hangover. I thought, what in the world what am I accomplishing by doing? Am I showing off for the troops that the boss can take a drink? I'm tired of this.
Yeah.
I still go to the bars and hang out with my friends if that's what they want to do, but they know they order me a ginger ale when I come in the door. I don't drink alcohol. And I don't condemn. I'm not condemning anybody for drinking. You make up your own decision.
It's just not for me. There's no return on investment for me. Everything in my life. I want a return on investment, whether it's relationship, a conversation. I want something out of it.
Yep.
You can say that's being selfish, then I'm selfish.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're going to get out of this today interview here, but thank you for being on here. All 28 listeners are going to enjoy this, I'm sure.
That's funny. You got more listeners than I'm always saying on my podcast, I'm like, well, I really appreciate all 6 of you listening to us.
Well, my number of listeners kind of coincides with the number of hairs I got left on top of my head.
Yeah, I'll go fly in an airport and somebody be like, hey, I'm one of your 6 listeners.
Oh, that's cool. Now, that's cool. You got through to somebody when they do that. It's amazing. The book, and you know what? For some reason, I didn't get a copy of your book when we were there, so I'm going to order one, just because you can always learn something new from everybody.
Absolutely.
I used to tell people that worked, and I hate to see subordinates, but the people that I was responsible for, I'll put it like that. I told them, when you know everything, let me know, because you're out. If you're not willing to learn something new, drug traffickers, they're changing every day. Why would we not change with them?
Right.
And it could be any occupation. But let's talk about your coaching business now, because I think that's where somebody in your position and you personally really shine. That you've got this experience to fall back on. You've got these stories that it makes you stop and listen. You have invested in yourself physically. You're a little bit intimidating. You're in great shape. That's the thing. But it just shows you what could be, starting out by going to GB Hall, and look at you now.
Yeah.
So your coaching business, what's it called, and how would people find out about it? And what could they expect?
It's called the Agogi, and we're looking for men who are salty. And what I mean by salty is they're stressed out of their situation. They're stressed. Mm-hmm. They're angry of the country, their situation, their life. They're just pissed off. They're lonely, even though they're surrounded by friends, coworkers, and their family. They feel isolated. They feel alone, even though they have people around them. And we've all felt that. We felt that isolation, even though we've got people that love us, because we feel like we're in a hole by ourselves. We're fighting this fight by ourselves, even though maybe we're fighting it for other people, but we're lonely. We're tired because we've been at it for so long, and we're yearning for more because we know that we can be more. We know that we're not living up to the man that we're supposed to be. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Society has deemed masculinity bad. They've deemed patriarchy bad. So we have all these requirements to be men have all these requirements, but then at the same time, we're not supposed to be men. But be men so that you meet the requirements. And if you don't meet the requirements, you're a piece of shit. And so it's like impossible to do anything correct. Right.
Right.
So they get stuck in this thing. And then next thing you know, because they're salty and because they're feeling all these different things, they are turning to what? Alcohol, drugs, pornography, something to give them a break from their reality. And it's not that I think that they want to do those things. It's just that they're trying to they're just trying to feel something. They're trying to escape and feel some good in their negative environment.
Okay.
What we do is we realign their priorities. We realign their routine, and we get them to change their perspectives, and we get them to change from living in a gap mindset into a gain mindset. That's it. What kind of life do you want to have? Tell me what the life that you want. What's your top 4 priorities? Now show me your routine. Well, either your priorities are bullshit or your routine's bullshit, because they're not congruent with one another. But if I can change the routine and get them to see their habits and change the routine to align with their priorities, their top 4 priorities in their life, because typical men's priorities are their family,
Mm-hmm.
their finances, their faith, and their health. But I look at their routine. They work all the time. They don't spend time with their family. They don't invest in their health. Their health's failing. They're gaining weight, right? Their finances are in the shitter. But you tell me your top 4 priorities are these things.
Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of looking in the mirror.
It's a lot of looking in the mirror. It's a lot of holding men accountable. But it's also me from an empathetic standpoint, knowing, listen, you and I both know that you can be more. You and I both know that you can be more, and you're not living up to the highest version of yourself. You know, and I've been there. I've been on the beach down here in Surf City with a gun in my pocket, ready to take my own life. I've been that guy.
Mm-hmm. I've
been the guy drinking a handle every 2 days. I've been the guy that went from 240 pounds at 10% body fat to 240 pounds at 28% body fat. I know where you're at. I've been in your shoes. I know how shitty it feels.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a better way, and you can work yourself way out of it. And I'll tell them right now, guess what? The way that I'm telling you is going to be a lot harder. It's going to be a harder life than what you're living right now. But you'll be happier and it'll be more rewarding. And there's a great book by Napoleon Hill called Outwitting the Devil. And if any man reads that, he needs to take a hard look in his mirror, and that's how the devil gets you. That's how evil wins. They get you by being distracted. They get you by being addicted to tobacco, addicted to alcohol, addicted to drugs, addicted to women, looking for that vice. And I've talked about that several times on this podcast. But this is a real thing that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been happening for a long time. Henry Thorgood, I think is his name, said men live a life of, I want to say 100 years ago, said men live a life of quiet desperation on all the things that I just spoke about over 100 years ago. And it's only worse today.
Yeah. And society doesn't do anything to help.
No. And I say this, and this is where it kind of lit a fire in my ass, was during COVID. My gym got raided by law enforcement during COVID.
Because you've actually told me the story, but I want everybody else to hear it too.
Well, we closed down. Initially, I should have never closed down in general, but you don't know what you don't know. And I closed down for initially 2 weeks. The governor came out at 3 weeks and said, hey, he did this whole hey, this is what we're going to do. This is the plan. Didn't mention anything about training facilities. I had a public gym at the time. And he didn't say anything. So I said, okay, well, since you're not going to say anything, Don says consent. I'm gonna look. I looked at the CDC. My friend and mentor Bedros Keuilian came out. He has an international franchise called Fit Body Boot Camp. He came out with a very detailed guide on how he's going to run, how Fit Body Boot Camp is going to run in conjunction with COVID. I had people hitting me up saying, Nick, I'm losing my mind. I got to get out of this house. I got to go back to the gym. This is how I stay sane. And we didn't have any COVID cases. We're in a town. We're in a small town at 400 members. Our town population is 2,500 people. There ain't Steve. There ain't nothing going on here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I put all those guidelines in place, and I opened back up. And I got military guys, I got law enforcement guys, I got a U.S. Marshal that trains here. I got, you know what I mean? We're very heavily first responder military gym and area. And sure as shit, we get raided by the cops.
It wasn't any of the cops that were going to the gym, was it?
No, not in our area. It was cops from Jacksonville, Wilmington, special operate. Because of my background, I kind of attracted special operations, law enforcement, marshals, special operations from the base, other Marines. We have a nice training facility down here. So they raided the gym, and then I was like, wait a minute. And then, I went through that whole process, and it got really gnarly for a while, and they were trying to arrest me. And they realized I don't think I wasn't budging. And so they turned their sights on the members, and they were trying to the cops were harassing the members. And listen, I don't have anything bad about law enforcement. It was just a few bad apples, and they've all been fired. And it was a shit show, and it was a 2-year legal battle, but whatever. And I had a bunch of law enforcement officers at the time reach out to me and say, hey, I'm sorry this is happening. as super illegal. They broke the Fourth Amendment. They didn't have any warrants. They had no jurisdiction. You know, I mean, there's no legal reason for them to do what they did.
Right.
And if they would arrest, the reason why they didn't arrest me, because if I would have went down to the courthouse, they'd have been like, "What are you charging him with?"
Yeah.
What's this? Well, you can't hold him.
Running the gym during COVID.
Where's the law?
Exactly.
Well, there's a rule. The governor said, "Well, what's the fucking law?"
Yeah.
There isn't one. You can't charge me. It's bullshit. So, anyways, all this goes down, and I take a step back. And I'm like, how did this happen to our country? How did this happen to our state? And it just came down to weak men.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it came down to. As in my opinion, it came down to weak men. Because if you had men who were, before we systematically took men out of the picture. If you look at the men in the 60s and the 50s, and I'm not saying the men, fathers and men in the 60s and 50s were perfect, because they weren't. But they had morals, they had code.
Mm-hmm.
They were the patriarch of their family. They were there. The family unit meant something.
Yep.
Regardless of what color you were. And I like to talk about the black community specifically, because in the 60s, the black community was very strong. And what happened in the 70s, and we can go down that road. But if men were the men that they were in the 50s and 60s and 40s, and this happened today, they would be like, nope, this isn't what's in the best interests of our families, our kids at school, our communities, and our small businesses. So no, we will not be doing these unethical, tyrannical laws or rules, orders, because it's not in the best interest of our community. But men over the decades have been so distracted. They're fat, they're weak, they're distracted, their minds are distracted. Just literally the way that Napoleon Hill said over 100 years ago in his book Outwitting the Devil, that was going to happen. So if you want to take over a country, are you worried about the women? Are you worried about the children? Are you worried about the elderly? No, you're worried about military-age males. So how do we pussify a country? How do we take men out of power? We'll make them fat, sick, distracted. And that's what we've done over the decades. And I take a step back and I said, where's the real war happening? The real war is right there with men. We need to put men back in the driver's seats of their families and driver's seats in their communities. So that's what we're doing. That's my mission. I want to empower men to be the very best version of themselves. And let's get that back. Let's take our families back. Let's take our kids back. Let's get in the driver's seat of our schools and our communities and our businesses.
And I'm going to venture to say that, and I'm pretty sure this is correct, is we're not saying to put the wives or the women in a secondary role.
Nope.
You know, when you're married, it's a team. You know, it's like you said, behind every successful man is a strong woman.
There's been a pivot to where the men are sitting on the couch, fat and drunk, watching Netflix. And I'm not saying all men, but I'm saying the gross populace, because I can go walk around and go and watch them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the reason why women are now, you're seeing more women. They're like, well, they're Karens and they're bitches and they're this and they're that. Well, and they're so aggressive. Well, they have to be, because the man's not doing shit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's changing the dynamic of the feminine masculine role.
Yeah.
Women want to be women. But in the absence of masculinity, women will become more masculine.
Yeah. They'll make the decisions.
They'll make the decisions. And that's the situation that we're in. And that's how we got into this situation. And that's what, over the last, 4+ years, that's the reason why the agoge has turned into what it is.
What does the word agoge mean?
So obviously I'm Greek, if you didn't know from my last name. The agoge was a training camp for young men in Sparta. And it's how you became a Spartan citizen. And me and my business partner kind of just felt like men need to go back through a man camp. You need to go back in this training camp to where you learned how to be a citizen. You learned how to be a man again. Mm-hmm. And that's why we call it agoge, because it's a tribe. It's a tribe of men learning to better themselves, to be better fathers, to be better husbands, to be better Americans.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I saw that, but I don't want to type it in while you're talking here. What the heck does that mean? I actually saw it on your website or when I Googled you to see what all the different things that you were up to. Now tell us a little bit more about this group here, Core Medical Group, what they do, what that's all about. Because I didn't realize you'd been with Sid for 6 years now.
Yeah. So core med. So so when I got out of the military at 30, 31 years old, I was having all those issues, those transitional issues I was talking about. And a civilian friend of mine who I'd met through another friend in my network, we got really close, and he said, "Nick, have you ever had a blood test?" And I said, "No." Like testing your hormones? I said, "No." He goes, "Listen, I'm not trying to overstep or anything, but a lot of the things you're dealing with, I feel like are a low testosterone level." And I was like,
That's
"Okay,
that's a little challenging to man.
yeah, right. Like, I think you got low T. What the hell, man? Come on, and I'll kick your ass."
Yeah.
And anyways, so um, I did a blood test, and I came back at 31 years old at a 91.
And explain what that number means, please.
It really means nothing, but at the end of the day, we see that men operate best at around 900. My wife's probably got like a 150,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a 91. I was lethargic, brain fog, couldn't sleep, irritable, couldn't recover, gaining weight. I mean, it was just the shit. I felt horrible, depressed, and we wonder why. Well, that's the reason why. So I got on a therapeutic dose of TRT, and everything changed. I had clarity. I mean, there's a lot of things I did, but for the TRT, I had clarity. Was able to get back in shape. I had more motivation. Started sleeping better. My libido came back. I didn't have necessarily like a problem performing. I just didn't I had a lack of interest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just didn't care, which makes sense. And um, and that everything changed. And then in years go on, I was working with a clinic in Kansas City, and but it was inconvenient. The guy was great. He's a Vietnam surgeon. He's a great guy, but it became inconvenient, and I needed somebody that I could work with, kind of like virtually, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I could get my prescription. So a friend of mine, Vince Fargus, which you met, Vince.
Yeah, I got his book right here behind me.
Yeah, introduced me to Sid, and I became a patient. Yeah, great dude, great former Ranger and Bortec guy, great father too, great husband, just a great man overall.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Well, let me introduce you to these guys," and so I became a patient. And then after becoming a patient, I kind of came out came out of the closet about my TRT use, because it was very like, "Oh, you're on steroids and you're on drugs and all this kind of stuff." And
TRT, testosterone recovery treatment.
Yeah, testosterone replacement therapy. And there's a lot of bad stigma around it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to come out and talk about it. And I had came off for a little while because we were having a kid, and I was before with Core, and I had to get a TESE procedure where they basically draw the testosterone out of my balls, and then we did an IVF, and that's how I got my third kid. Yeah. And yeah, it was rough. It was rough, but we got it done. Now I got a little 4-year-old, right? Which you saw there, right? I think you saw him. Little 4-year-old redhead.
Here thinking about taking that needle.
Well, I won't. I'll bear you the trauma, because it's a lot worse than just that. Anyways, so once that process was done, I said, I'm going to start talking about this. How do I send patients to Core? And that's where our relationship started. So I kind of started as an ambassador and started sending people to Core. And then as that relationship grew, my relationship with Sid grew. And then I saw the process of how Core treats patients. Now we're one of the biggest clinics nationally. A lot of clinics are like, we call them TRT mills. You don't know who you're talking to. You don't know who your doctor's is. It's just like, it's a form. You fill it out. You pick your finger, which is the stupidest thing ever. You can't tell shit from a fingerprint. And then they send you some white label thing that you don't even know what's in the bottle, and you get it. And Sid always from the get-go was like his most important thing was the patient. He's like, I want to take care of the patient, and I want to have a one-on-one relationship with the patient. So over the last 6 years, I've worked with him to help scale his business to maintain his core values.
Right.
No matter how many patients we have to have a human being, because it's a human being problem, and we want to have that connection. We want to have that one-on-one connection between the medical provider and the patient, regardless of where they're at. And we want them to feel important. We want them to feel like their symptoms are important and that their life is important, because you might have marriage instability because of low libido or ED or something like that, or money problems because the guy's not motivated. And there's so much stuff. We've heard it all. And it's important to have that human being soul connection, right? Like we care about your symptoms. We care about your lifestyle. And that resonated so much with me because I remember being there and feeling that way. And it was very comforting to have somebody that gave a shit instead of just some online form that you don't ever, it's just some faceless thing. And then you get this box in the mail. You don't even know what the hell it is.
Yeah.
It's and like the way that core medical works is it's not like that. It's you get a pharmacy that is actually like name brand stuff that comes to you. And then you get people that help you administer. You know what I mean? Like you get actual, like, this is how you do it. And then if something's not working or you don't feel, like, you call your patient coordinator and like, hey, this is what's going on. This is my symptoms. We can, we test blood work and we're about solving the problem. And just like with what we do in the Agoge and what I do with Johnny Slicks, I feel like it's all like they're all symbiotic of each other. It's all about making people's lives better. That's what it is. And that's what Core does. Core takes care of families. Core takes care of people. And it's not just men, it's women. It's a family run business. And it's just one of those things where even though we probably lose money on the way that we do business because we have to hire so many people and as we grow, we have to bring more people on. We just don't sacrifice the product, and the product is people.
When we were in Beaufort, South Carolina back in February, I did the blood draw there at the hotel.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then sometime later, got a phone call from, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten his name now, but to go over everything and ask me questions, kind of like I guess more of a health history, and then came up with recommendations. And just looking at the blood test results, I was in acceptable levels on everything, believe it or not, even at my age.
That's amazing.
I won't tell you, I'm 67 years old. It's and it was surprising, and I'm not. I mean, I still go to the gym probably 5 days a week. I'm like you, one of the other early risers. I like to get up at about 5:30, and get in the gym, get it over with. Because if I don't, I won't do it the rest of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? It's like you've accomplished something. If you don't do anything else the rest of your day, you've accomplished that.
Exactly.
But it was, even if you don't need any additional treatments, it's reassuring to know that you're doing, you're falling within the parameters.
Every single man needs to go get this blood test, and I'm not talking a general blood test. I'm talking a full 28 panel blood test that Core does, because the general doctor, they're going to test your cholesterol, they're going to test your triglycerides, and that's about it. You know what I mean? Every single man needs to do a full hormone panel, 28 panel blood test every single year, because things change every year. And if you're not doing that blood panel every single year, you don't know how things are negating. You don't know what's happening. There might be a traumatic event, and trauma, car accident, an injury, a fall, you're riding your bike and you fall down and hit your head. All of that is going to play into your hormones. So it's absolutely crucial that you maintain your health, and you have to be your own advocate. Your doctor's not going to do it for you. You have to be in charge of your own health. You have to be your own advocate.
Yep. Yeah. So it's just all you have to do. And this isn't intended to be a commercial for Core Medical Group, but if you think you're interested in this and experience it, just Google Core Medical Group.
Yeah.
You'll find it. Sid Gordon is the creator of the company, the CEO, and we've gotten to be friends. And I think that's what I like most about it. He doesn't come around as a pompous ass. That's, I've got money and you can't talk to me. That kind
he legitimately gives a shit about human beings.
Yeah. Which is kind of falls in line with what we're talking about here, because you started off rough in your young life, dealing with a situation that you had nothing to do with the making, but you got through it with your mom. You made that choice to go into gangs, but then you made the choice to get out of it too, and to go in the military. And when you take a position, whether it's law enforcement, military, first responders, you are becoming a public servant. You're making a decision in your life to serve your fellow man. And to do that, we all take an oath, right? You took oath,
Yep.
defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. And you know what? When you got out, did they say, hey, your oath is no longer good? Your oath doesn't expire.
It doesn't expire. I still took it.
Yeah. And so,
I didn't give it back.
Well, and I've got this corny saying that I came up with, and it's just because we retire doesn't mean that our oaths ever expire. You know, you and I and all the people that fall in those categories chose a life to serve their fellow man. I mean, I've been retired for 11 years now. I was a cop for 38 years. I've been retired 11 years now from law enforcement, and I still feel a need to try to do something to help others. And that's the big purpose I have for having the podcast here with Game of Crimes, is to bring people on so that our listeners can meet you, realize that. And I know this is going to sound stupid when I say it, but when Morgan and I first started the show 3.5 years ago, we were getting comments from people that were saying, wow, I listened to his story. I never thought about cops being human too. What the hell do you think we are, aliens? So I guess what I'm trying to say here is the guests that I bring on, I want them to be motivational. Man, you probably look up the word motivation in the dictionary and see your picture there.
I appreciate that.
And we still haven't covered all the things you do. Your book, you mentioned one book, but you had so many books. I stopped making the list here on my one page.
No, I read a book called, let me see if I have it here. I do have it here. Hold on, Steve.
All right.
This book right here, a friend and mentor gave this to me. Where will you be in 5 years? It's on Amazon, and it's called 5. Where will you be in 5 years from today? The cover looks different now, but and people don't get, like, it's not a big book. It's a thin book, and it looks like this. It's got a lot of numbers and weird things, and you know what I mean. It's for us simple folk.
I'm a visual learner.
Yeah. So what it does is it gets you to ask some questions about yourself. And in 2018, I realized with that book is what gave me my personal mission. And I realized that I was my purpose now in this stage of my life is to inspire, educate, and motivate others to live a more healthier and successful life. That's it. And I get to do that through Core Med. I get to do that through the Agoge. I get to do that through Johnny Slicks. And knowing your personal mission, knowing the importance of your purpose and your passion will drive everything else. And if you look at my life since I did that exercise in this book from 2018 to now, it has drastically changed. Yeah. I wasn't doing any of the things that I'm doing now when I developed that mission statement. But knowing that and having that clarity is what gave me the decision-making process to drive forward to where I'm at today.
Excellent. Well, you've got a series of books that I'm looking at. I did write a few of them down. The list. So 12-week Marine Corps recruit training prep, Marine Corps recon prep, Marine Raider prep. And that's how 7 more books that I didn't write.
Yeah, that's how the Agoge originally started. So we were writing training programs and different guides and different things, and then that led into what is now the Agoge.
All right. So what am I missing here? All of these businesses and all these
concepts. That's it. That's all we're going to talk about. Those 3.
I mean, I guess I'm fangirling here just a little bit with Nick.
Beautiful.
That's just, having worked with operators in the past, especially from the Navy and the Army, and I mean studs. Javier and I still mention we worked with Delta and we worked with 6. I lived with them, worked with for 18 months in South America.
Yeah.
If we're ever kidnapped, that's who I want to come and get me, because I've seen their capabilities. I've seen the dedication. I'm in awe of those people. And then when I came to Sid's thing this past February, the Military Appreciation Weekend, I really was fangirling over a bunch of you guys out there. But, you can't show it. You got to be cool.
Well, we were doing the same. No, we were doing the same with you. We're like, holy shit, that's the dude.
yeah. And everybody's like, that old guy? Look at him. But I want to mention some places where people can find you. So your podcast is it Always Forward with Nick?
No, it's the Nick Koumalatsos show now.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So you heard that there. Go check him out. On his website, just look up Nick Koumalatsos. You say it.
Nick Koumalatsos. NickKoumalatsos.com.
So I was pretty close.
Good luck.
I've been practicing this, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can find Nick on LinkedIn at the same Nick Koumalatsos, on X, and he's this guy's a pretty big social influencer here. And on the ones I'm getting ready to mention here on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and X, it's all the same, Nick Koumalatsos, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of followers that he's got on here. I'm working on YouTube trying to get up to 1,000 just so I can start trying to monetize something with this thing. So
we'll do a little love. We'll help you out.
Oh, thank you, brother. It's highly encourage all of our listeners to check Nick out, whatever you're interested in. And he's still got his gym run. Your gym's still running, right?
It's private gym now for my employees and my family.
Man, and you know what that's called? That's called taking care of your people.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Dude, you have motivated me. I can't tell you how much that I've been looking forward to this. I know that you've been busy and I've been busy, and I'm just fortunate that we were able to get together for a couple hours today. I think originally we were going to try to do back-to-back interviews here, but I know you got things going, and I did one this morning, and doing 2 interviews in a day. At my age, I'm ready to go take a nap.
Yeah, you deserve it.
But honor, thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for what you're continuing to do to help others. I don't mean any of this as patronizing. It's being a patriot is a badge of honor in our country, should be for everybody. You're somebody that risked your own life to protect people you don't know, and people don't give a shit about you. Yeah, but that's what heroes do. Now, I'm sure Nick will never tell you he was a hero, but that's what makes him a hero. So for all our listeners, do me a favor, check Nick out at all the places we mentioned. And if you forget all those, just Google him. And let me spell you, his last name is Koumalatsos. Now you know why I call him Nick K.
There you go.
All right, brother. Thank you so much, Nick. It's been an honor and pleasure, man.
Yes,
for all our listeners, thank you for joining us again. Check Nick out. Show him some love as well. And I will see you folks next week. Well, unfortunately, that's it for this week's episode of Game of Crimes with Murph in the Morning. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to see and hear some of the best true crime content you can find anywhere. None of this would be possible without your support, and I don't take that lightly. If you like this week's episodes, head on over to Apple or Spotify, hit those 5 stars to help support the show. And if you don't know this already, Game of Crimes is now on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, type in Game of Crimes Podcast in the search bar at the top, and see what you think. And while you're there, do me a favor and click on the subscribe button and the like button, and feel free to share with all your friends. You can send me your comments on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or to our email address, which is gameofcrimespodcast@gmail.com. My website is gameofcrimespodcast.com. This is where you'll find all our episodes, books written by some of our guests, merchandise, and more. On Facebook and Instagram, you can find us at Game of Crimes Podcast, and on X, type in Game of Crimes. Also on Facebook, go to Game of Crimes fan page and join the best private group on the Facebook platform. If you're looking for even more content, go to patreon.com/Game of Crimes and sign up. There you'll find several bonus episodes each month, ranging from serious and current topics to some silly and fun events. And you can get early audio access to each week's interviews before they drop on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You can even subscribe for free and hear the first 5 minutes of each episode to help you decide if you'd like to spend some of your hard-earned cash to hear more. That's patreon.com/Game of Crimes. Do me a huge favor, tell your friends all about Game of Crimes, invite them to come out and check the show. Do me a huge favor and tell your friends about Game of Crimes. Invite them to come over and check out the show. I appreciate you helping me spread the word about the best weekly true crime podcast available. Yeah, and I'm a little prejudiced. And before I go here, just a word about our guests. I'm extremely proud of every person that comes on the show and their willingness to be so transparent and honest about their lives and experiences. You got to remember,
Some of these heroes are still receiving death threats because of some of the courageous and unbelievable acts they were involved with. These are real life heroes, people just like you and me with families who risk their very lives to protect and defend all of us every single day. You've probably heard the saying, real heroes don't wear capes, right? That's who I'm talking about here. These studs and studettes, they don't wear capes. They don't parade around like fictional superheroes that we see on the movies or on television. Our heroes, they wear uniforms, body armor, bulletproof helmets, knife resistant gloves, gun belts. They carry handguns, long guns, stun guns, anything they can find to help protect themselves and us. Just think about that for a second. Does your job, your career require any of this? Thank God we have men and women willing to make these sacrifices and do these jobs. And thank God for their families. That's who I refer to as our unsung heroes. They keep life running on the home front, not really knowing if their husband, wife, child, brother, sister, whoever is going to make it home at the end of their shift or their tour. You think that might cause a little tension around the house, a little stress, anxiety, post-traumatic stress syndrome, maybe even thoughts of suicide. It takes a special person to tolerate and endure all of that. But they do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Now, a quick side note here before we go. Regardless of who you are, if you or someone you know is struggling with any of these conditions like overwhelming stress, anxiety, hopelessness, PTSD, please don't think you're alone. If you need someone to talk to and don't know where to turn, there's a National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Just dial or text 988. That's it, 988. These lines are manned around the clock every day of the year. They'll find someone, a professional, for you to talk to and get you the help and support you need. Again, that's 988. One other thing about our guests that I find so admirable is the fact that they didn't stop serving once they retired. Almost all, if not all of them, continue to serve others in some capacity after their retirement. I have a saying that applies here. Just because we retire, that doesn't mean that our oaths expire. Is that a little bit corny? I know it is, but that's the way most of these heroes feel. It's their creed, their mantra to keep doing good things for other people. To all our guests here on Game of Crimes, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for your service to our communities, your countries, and for taking the time to tell us about your adventurous life. To you, I say, job well done, brothers and sisters. May God bless and protect all the men and women in law enforcement, our military, and all our first responders. And one last thought here. It's okay for us to have different ideas and different opinions, but that doesn't mean we can't continue to be friends, right? So thanks again for joining me to play the biggest, baddest, most dangerous game of all, the Game of Crimes. I'll see y'all next week.